I got that.
Hi there, Facebook land and LinkedIn land and YouTube world. I'm Michelle.
I'm Jim.
We're from A Teak of Your Own. Hey, we're from here. Oh, look how that happened. Welcome to another Motivational Monday.
Let's get motivated.
Woo! Yay! We got our shirts.
Yes.
And they're awesome.
And there's the dog.
And there's the dog. Talk a little bit about this for a moment. I'll let her out. Come on.
So
there's nobody out there. No.
Today we're going to be talking about responsibility for relationships.
Yes. Yes, we are. Did you know that you're actually responsible for your personal and professional relationships?
Yes, because if you don't nurture them, then who will?
That's exactly it. And that's the whole point that he makes in the book. And when we're talking about the book, we're talking about the tiny little book here, Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. Literally 54 pages. And no, should be 55 pages. And easy read.
Yes.
So we've talked about the 4 other sections up until now. When it comes to relationships, this goes for not just business relationships.
It goes for all of them.
Yeah. And the very first thing that Drucker talks about in here, he tells you that most people work with others and are affected with other people.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times when I taught accounting that I had people tell me the reason why they were going into accounting was because they didn't like working with other people.
Didn't like working with other people.
I got bad news, and I had bad news for them.
Yep.
You got to work with other people.
Yep.
It does not matter what your career path is, you're going to end up working with other people.
I get the same thing in finance. I say, oh, I like to work with numbers, so I'll be able to do that, and I won't have to deal with other people. And then I drop the hammer on them and let them know that finance is not a numbers business. It is a people business because you're dealing with other people's money.
Yeah.
And that means you have to talk to people and you have to build those relationships. There's a few jobs. If you go into being a pure quant jock, then maybe you'll only have to deal with a few people. You'll still have to deal with people.
Yeah.
But you won't have to deal with as many. But if you go into, financial planning, banking, anything like that, oh yeah, you're going to have to deal with people.
I've been working with some technology folks recently, and you would think technology, that's something I can just, sit in front of my computer, just deal with that. Don't have to work with people. Wrong.
Yeah, definitely wrong.
So keep that in mind. It doesn't matter what career field you're in. It doesn't matter what path you take. You're going to be working with other people.
At some point, you're going to be talking to somebody.
Yeah. And Drucker tells us managing yourself requires taking responsibility for your relationships. And he then explains that there are 2 parts to that. The first part is accepting the fact that other people are as much individuals as you yourself are. And he spent the first part of the book talking about that, talking about what are your strengths, what do you contribute, all that fun stuff. Well, it's the same with everybody else.
Yeah.
So what are their strengths? What are they good at? What are they not so good at? What parts of the organization would they easily fit into? That's one of the things that you need to become very much aware of.
And that means getting to know them as individuals, not putting them into a group based off of certain characteristics, because everybody is an individual. Even though they may come from groups where they're going to have certain commonalities, you cannot assume that they have all of the commonalities of whatever group they may come from, because they are all individuals. We are all unique and special.
Yes, we are.
Just like everybody else.
Yes, we are. One of the things that Drucker brings up in this part of the book is he tells you all managers, all leaders, all bosses are not alike.
No, not even close.
They are very different.
Yes.
And what works for one won't necessarily work for another.
Right.
And when it comes to their communication styles, because that's the second part of all of this, because Drucker tells us, the second part of relationship responsibility is taking responsibility for communication. And when it comes to the people that you report to, if it's a manager, a director, a business owner, whatever, when it comes to the people that you report to, they have very specific communication needs.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't figure out what those communication needs are, and you base it on the fact of what your old manager was like, you may be in for a rude awakening.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say once you move from working for one manager to working for another one, you just need to forget about what the previous one did, because you don't work for that person anymore. You've got to learn the new person. If you are the supervisor, you also need to understand that you need to understand your communication style and learn how to make that fit with the communication styles of the people that you have working in your team.
Yeah, one of the first things you need to do as a new leader is sit down with the people that you're leading and talk with them and find out, what do you expect from me? What do I expect from you? Blah, blah, blah. But then also find out, what are their preferences when it comes to communication? Yeah. Do they like email? Do they like phone call? Do they want to personally sit down with you? Are they somebody who is perfectly happy with you praising them in public? Or are they somebody who would just like a very private, thanks for doing what you do, that kind of thing?
Right. And then if you know their preferred communication style, then it's easier to adapt to them, to their style, so you can communicate in a way that you're going to connect.
Yes.
And so that means, as a leader, if you're, say, for instance, a high I, you have to know when to throttle that back. Because if you're not careful, that's the type of personality where all of your team members can think that you're all friends, and forget about the fact that you got a job to do. And they could take advantage of that. If you're a C, you may have to learn how to open up a little bit more to effectively communicate with some of your team members, who may be, more chatty and more communicative than C's will be sometimes.
Yes.
So you really, and then if you're a D, you got to figure out that not everybody is ready to get everything done right now.
What?
Which is what D's do.
Really?
Yes.
No.
Not everybody's ready to run through a brick wall with you.
Should be.
And so you have to temper that as well. And then if you are an S, you got to understand your team is going to change. Things are going to change. And you've got to be ready to deal with that. And you've got to make your team comfortable with that, which means you've got to get comfortable with it. So,
and if you have no idea what he was just talking about, DISC is your friend. DISC is all about communication preferences. It's about leadership preferences. And if you need more information about that, we are more than happy to do that. In fact, that'd probably be a really good topic for a future Facebook Live. But DISC is an acronym for the 4 different styles.
Yes.
The D's are the dominant or the driven types of people.
Yep.
The I's are the influencers. The S's are the steadies, and the C's are the compliance.
Yep.
So fun. And they all have definite communication preferences.
Yes. And once you know yours, then it's easier to spot and figure out others.
Yes.
And the key to it all is to learn how to communicate in their preferred style, not yours.
Yes.
And that's the key to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, with some of the stuff that we have, some of the assessments we have, we call it DISC Plus, because depending on what assessment you're looking at, you'll get DISC, so you'll get your DISC assessment, but you'll get a lot more. Yeah. Some of them have a lot more.
Ton more. Yeah.
Ton more. It's amazing.
talks about values and incorporating that into your organization. And
and your task preferences at work and things like that. Yeah.
All right, so getting back to Peter Drucker, one of the things that he talks about in this section, I thought was very interesting, because I've had people ask me, what do I do if I'm working for somebody and they're an awful leader? Yeah. And there's a way to lead up. There's a way for managing up and leading up. And that's one of the things that he talks about in this particular section, because you are responsible for your relationship. You're responsible for your relationship with whoever is in charge of you, just like they're supposed to be responsible for the relationship of
so the people on your team, and then the people whose team you happen to be on.
And the problem is, sometimes you will work for somebody who has not very good leadership skills. Mm-hmm. I have worked for those people.
Yes,
and
I have too.
They are not fun.
They're awful.
Actually, they can be extremely nice. Some of them, the one lady that I worked for, she was just the nicest person ever. But she would tell me, because I would try and get time on her calendar to go meet with her and find out, what can I do to help you? What can you do to help me? That kind of thing. And she'd say, all right, well, here's a link to my calendar. Go ahead and just book yourself some time. It was impossible to do. Literally, she would be triple booked from about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning till about 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. Mm. And she would just have all this stuff overlapping. And that's one of her downfalls as a leader was she could not manage time. Yeah. Obviously, she could not manage time. And she couldn't get anything done because she couldn't manage her time. And that's kind of sad. Yeah. However, she was a very nice lady. She was an awful leader. And it's because she could not manage priorities. She couldn't manage any tasks. She couldn't lead people at all. She was not she did not have the skill set for actually leading people.
Yeah, you get that.
You had the opposite end of the spectrum where they weren't so nice of a person.
I've had the one that always comes to mind was early in my career. Mm-hmm. I had a position at a manufacturing facility, and I went into that job with a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. Really just dove into it head first. I was, a production supervisor, floor supervisor for a department in this plant, and just went at it full tilt. Got to know all of the people on the team. Made that effort to show them that I was really interested in what they were doing, and I was, learning the job as fast as I could. And my supervisor, who was in his third department at that point, pretty much his last chance. He was in third department because he had messed up the first two. Mm. He kept talking about, and I heard this story so many times, the initial evaluation. And he kept telling me the story of how you were scored on 2 categories, and it was on a scale of 0 to 5 or 1 to 5. And he kept talking about, his first evaluation, he got a 2.2. And so he told me this over and over and over. And so I had a pretty fair idea what was going to happen, but I thought, there's no way he's going to do that. Not when I've got everybody in the place telling me that, man, you are fantastic. You're one of the best people we've ever had in here before. You're doing things that, people, previous supervisors haven't done. I'm talking about, experienced people who had been in there for 30, 40 years. And, they're saying, man, you're going to go far in this company, man. You are fantastic. You're just knocking it out of the park. And then I get my first evaluation, and there it was, my 2.2. And our relationship went south very fast after that. I was very unhappy about that because I knew that I had not earned a 2.2. And the problem is, that's in your permanent record. Yep. That's right. That's there. And it's like, why are you going to cut me off at the knees, especially when he needed me? He needed that department to be successful. And yeah, to do that to this day, I still don't understand it. It was just because that's what he got, and I imagine every time that he had a new, supervisor, that's exactly what he
Yep.
did to them, and just I still don't understand
No.
it. I still don't understand it to this day, and I was only there for about a year because I couldn't work for this guy.
Mhm.
It was unacceptable.
So when it comes to managing up,
Hmm.
one of the things that Drucker talks about is he talks about how bosses are neither a title in the organizational chart or a function. They're individuals and are entitled to do their work in the way that they can do best. And it is incumbent on people who work with them to observe them, to find out how they work and adapt themselves to what makes their bosses more effective. This is, in fact, the secret of managing the boss.
And
So
that was what was crazy about that situation.
Yeah.
Was I was doing everything I could to support him,
mm-hmm.
and like I said, we had the department humming, and it was really making him look good.
Yeah.
And for him to do what he did was, I said, still baffles me.
Yeah. And Drucker tells you it's the same with your coworkers. You need to work with them, figure out what their best communication styles are, what their strengths are. And he actually has some questions in here. He tells you to ask people who you are working with, who you have in your life. And he says the sooner you ask these, the better. Because usually the response will be, thanks for asking, why didn't you ask me earlier? But first and foremost, he says, ask, share with your coworkers, share with your managers, your bosses, what your strengths are. Share with them what your preferred communication styles are. Share with them what your values are, and then turn around and say, what do I need to know about your strengths, how you perform, your values, and your proposed contribution? And he says, knowledge workers should request this of everyone with whom they work, whether a subordinate, a superior, a colleague, or a team member. Whenever this is done, the reaction is always, thanks for asking, why didn't you ask me earlier? So those are the questions to ask. What do I need to know about your strengths? What do I need to know about how you perform? What do I need to know about your values? And what do I need to know about your proposed contribution? So making sure that you understand that about the people who you work with and who you work for. Because once you understand that, you'll know better how to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's what he talks about in managing relationships. And like I said, you can actually use this for your personal relationships too.
Yeah.
Not just for professional ones. All right. Cool beans. The next section he talks about is the second half of your life. And I'm guessing he's talking about, the thing that you and I are never going to do.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Oh, and I just wanted to let you know, I've done your evaluation. You got a 5.5.
Well, thank you. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
I'm leaning towards a 5 on you too.
Leaning.
Oh, we'll
boy.
see. All right. So once again, everybody, go out, pick up a copy of Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. Very short book. We've got the last section next week. Next week, we've got a webinar coming up next week.
Oh, yeah.
On Monday at 12:15 Eastern Time. It is identifying your leadership language.
Hey,
that's
right.
a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We did
Yeah,
that
that'll be
last
fun.
year, and it's a fun one. So register for that free webinar. Like I said, it'll be next Monday, July 18th at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Free to attend. If you can't make it because you're one of those people who has something scheduled, register and we'll send you the recording. That's the way that works.
Yeah.
But you got to register so that we can send you the recording. And you will find the links here on LinkedIn and on Facebook as far as registering for that free webinar.
All right.
Can you think of anything else?
No?
No, we're good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Well, if you need to get in contact with us, where could they go?
Teagueofyourown.com.
Teagueofyourown.com. Yes. Tell
and
us what
Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yep. Tell us what you think about the snazzy new shirt.
Or threads.
Ooh. We'd like to thank the people at Scott Electric. Who knew? Scott Electric
does this.
Does embroidery and screen printing and all kinds of stuff. Who knew?
Yeah. Might have to wear our t-shirts one day.
We might.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, if you need to reach out to us, go to the website, Facebook, LinkedIn, send us an email, send us a text, give us a call. We are here for you. All right, Facebook land and LinkedIn land and YouTube world. Have a great week. We will see you next week. Bye. Everyone.